Welcome, everybody. This is a bonus episode of On the Move. This should be coming out on Monday, November 24th, and we typically would not have another episode scheduled for another 8 days. But I wanted to do this today because if you own horses and are on social media in any capacity, you have probably heard something about EHV. And I wanted to hop on here with someone who I go to with all of my vet questions, and at least someone I've chose to trust about a lot of this stuff when it comes to being a horse owner and managing your horses and doing the right thing from a veterinary standpoint. We've got Dr. Caroline Leeth, and are you in Maine right now?
I am in Maine. Yeah.
Nice, joining us from Maine. But Caroline was actually a client of ours, and when she did live in Virginia, was a very big help to our program and kind of helping us feel through some situations. But luckily, we didn't have to do anything, deal with anything like an EHV outbreak while you were down here. Um,
Yeah. Well, I think we did, but it was
Much more
not
localized.
the scale. Yes.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Not EHV at our program, but there was
Oh, no.
EHV
Yeah.
in our area.
In the area. Yeah.
Yeah, to date, knock on wood, we have never had EHV diagnosed in our program. But yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of throw out what I know as a layman's person, and I guess to begin with, just briefly, you are a doctor of veterinary medicine. How long have you been practicing veterinary medicine now?
Oh, over 20 years now. Yeah. And I
Okay,
do have a PhD in molecular biology too, which is helpful understanding viruses at the cellular level. So,
perfect, perfect. Well, that sounds plenty qualified to me. So much more qualified than where I'm at right now. So I'm just gonna kind of start talking through this situation in from what I know, and I'll ask you questions. But if any point you feel like something's not right or you feel like you need to add something, go ahead and hop in because I just really my goal with putting out this episode on the podcast would be that the average horse owner could kind of get a better feel for one, what EHV is, and two, what is going on with the situation right now in the United States. Okay. So, first off, EHV is the equine herpes virus. And I know there's several different strains, but this is EHV1 that we're dealing with.
correct.
Okay. And then kind of ground zero for this whole deal was I might butcher the title, but basically the National Barrel Racing Championships in Waco, Texas.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where they had a did they find a positive case there or was it once they came back from the event?
Yeah, it was once the event was over. And so you can imagine you've got horses from all over the country attending this event, and then they've now dispersed to all over the country. And then you have your first horse that's affected once they've gotten back home. And to add insult to injury, I guess, we had 8 horses go from that show to AQHA World Show in
Ugh.
Oklahoma. And so now you have the potential of uh, exposing all of those horses from all of their various states. And so I think the I think the scope of the this quote unquote outbreak is probably what is the most worrisome because it's almost like all 48 states have probably had exposed horses come back home. So
Mhm.
I, I think that's really sort of, in my mind, sort of the biggest concern, is that this could pop up anywhere in the country at this point. And we're kind of in this, we're still in this rapidly developing phase where horses, have been exposed potentially, but haven't yet gotten sick. And so it's sort of a wait and hope that it doesn't
Right.
pop up in your state. I'm trying to think of how many states I know, there's Texas, and then
Last I heard was 5, but that was yesterday. So that would have
I think
been
that's I
Saturday
think
the
that sounds right.
22nd.
It's either 5 or 6.
Yeah,
And so, which is like 4 or 5 more than we had just a couple of days ago, right? So,
right.
um, yeah,
Yeah, because this is all, again, we're recording this on the afternoon of the 23rd. This has all kind of come about in like the last week.
yeah,
Is that fair to say? Okay.
yeah.
Um,
I think less time than that. I'm gonna say less than that.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And so I want to get into that a little more as far as, the horses going from event to event and what that means. But another part that I've understanding is there is it's called EHM that is part of EHV. So EHV is the equine herpes virus, and horses can get it, and you can have nasal discharge, run fevers. I know that's a big indicator, things like that. Even though there was a case from this situation in Waco of some horses being non-symptomatic before, or
right.
asymptomatic, I guess was the correct term.
I mean, you're talking about a virus that we vaccinate for, right? And a
Yep.
virus that is very stable in the environment. It can live for weeks in the environment outside of a horse. And so it's out there. And there's a lot of horses that are exposed to it on a regular basis. And the EHM, which is equine herpes myeloencephalitis, is sort of a relatively new um, presentation of this viral infection, right?
Okay.
Previously, it was respiratory. It can be abortive, and so we're pretty careful with our brood mares not picking up this virus. But what we think happens, there was a lot of talk about, is it a different strain? Why isn't the vaccine protective? And we still don't know a whole lot about why it presents as this neurologic um, virus. And I know that's not satisfactory. It doesn't really
Yeah.
help, but there has been a lot of work trying to figure this out. And what we know right now is that it attacks the blood vessels in the nervous system. And so in
Mm.
doing so, that's why you get the neurologic symptoms. And presumably it does this before the immune system can shut the virus down, from your vaccine. So
Gotcha. Because, I mean, it's kind of like the flu. Like, if you're a
it's
horse owner
respiratory.
out there who is thinking, oh, okay, my horse has been vaccinated for EHV. Why am I concerned about this EHV outbreak? Well, it's so rapidly mutating that vaccinating for EHV would hopefully just make the symptoms of a horse catching EHV not as severe because you've already been
Right.
vaccinated for it. But it's not a preventative that says, now I've been vaccinated, my horse can't get EHV.
No, no vaccines are really 100%. Maybe the rabies vaccine gets closest. But, it is most vaccines are gonna give us some immunity so that our immune system already knows what this virus looks like, and so when we get infected, we're that much ahead of the curve, the immune system can just kick right into gear and take care of that virus. But you still will probably get a little sick. People can still get the flu for getting the flu vaccine, but the idea is that you don't get as sick. And so, you know, the like I said, a lot of horses with EHV are just going to present with a little respiratory infection, and they're going to get over it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and the neurologic symptoms is just a whole different ballgame. So, um,
Can you talk about the neurologic symptoms for someone out there? Because I know
yeah,
that's also like it's very nebulous what neurologic symptoms
right.
are. And I've
Okay.
heard
Yes.
different vets go round and round on, well, that horse is neurologic. No, it's not neurologic. Things like that.
The most common way these horses will start to look sick is they get real wobbly, mostly in their back end. And so and that's because they can't feel their back end normally. They don't have normal motor control because of the damage to the nervous system. So they'll get real weak and wobbly. They may lay down, they may go down and they can't get up again, or they have trouble. They also can have problems urinating. So they will not be able to urinate on their own. They may be dribbling urine. And so that is, I hate to say classic, but that's really sort of the textbook EHM horse, right? Fever is also typically a part of this. And the fever is what we call biphasic. So it's going to come and go. And so you can miss that first fever. Which is why people are saying, if you're concerned about your horses, if you feel like you have possibly have exposure, uh, take their temperatures twice a day, because the sooner you can catch that fever, the sooner you can start giving them supportive care and reaching out to your veterinarian and hopefully getting more ahead of it before you get the wobbly horse, right?
Right.
And you may never get the wobbly horse. You may just get the horse that has, a little respiratory infection, has a little snotty nose, coughs, um, but that's why we're taking temperatures twice a day, because the fever
Hmm.
can come and go. And that's one of the better ways to try and catch those horses early.
Right. So, for anyone out there listening, I'll give you an example. At our program, right now, we've got 14 horses at the barn. The two things we did is one, once we learned of EHV, we were like, okay, no outside horses are coming in, no one's trailering in for lessons, things like that, which was a pretty common across the board. I think it was a good thing everyone did it, but it almost all of a sudden on like horse trainer Facebook became the trendy thing to do, was just shut down your whole barn, because it was like we also recognize EHVs out there, right? Um
Right. I mean, you don't want to be. There is some perception issues there, right?
Mhm.
Some, if you're not shutting down, maybe you're not, taking this seriously where other people are. And I will say, everybody has their own level of risk aversion. And so let's not, you know, everybody will be deciding what they're going to do with their horses, uh, as far as how risk averse they are, et cetera. And you don't want to shame anyone for,
Right.
for
100%.
what, they've got an educated opinion, and this is, they've learned about the virus and this is how they're dealing with the situation. Then,
Yeah. And for
yeah,
context, guys, like we run a training barn.
yeah,
So it's me, my wife, and one or two employees coming in, right? So it's not like it was normal for people trailering in horses or a lot of horses coming or going. We'll have horses stay for however many months and then go home. But really for us, it was not a big change to our day to day to do that shutdown, as
right,
opposed to some operations. It's kind of like the COVID deal where it was like, okay, we got to shut down for COVID. But then at what point is the economic impact of shutting down outweighing the trying to be safe because of a virus?
right,
And so you kind of have to play that game and do that too. So yeah, we decided to shut our barn down, which honestly did not really change the day to day at all. I think we canceled like one or two lessons, but the time of year, most people are starting to kind of wind down how much they're riding in our area anyway. And then the other thing we started doing is we've got a Google Doc. All the horses' names are on it every day. and we have an AM and PM temperature check. And so that's what we've started doing.
So I'll tell you too, aside from that, like when talked about how the virus can persist in the environment without the horse. And so if you are traveling to give lessons at another barn, you do still run the risk of bringing the virus back home with you.
Hmm.
And then you also have, your farriers, chiropractic people who are going from barn to barn. And so that's I am really not trying to terrify people, but that is still a risk with this particular virus because it can stay alive on its own for a while.
Hmm.
And so I'm not saying you don't have your farrier come. I mean, veterinarians too. I mean, we are traveling from barn to barn. And so, you want to do your due diligence. Some people are going to, change their shirt, wear coveralls, take those coveralls off, um, change coveralls between barns, definitely wash your hands. There are like viral sides or just bleach solutions you can spray the bottom of your shoes with. You can go crazy, like we said, like, um, and again, I mean, is all of this overkill? Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's not been a case in Virginia. We don't have a case
Hmm.
in Maine.
Yeah.
I did get a letter from our state veterinarian that did say, because of health certificate tracking, we had horses that were at Waco that came back to the state of Maine. And so, um, when I learned that, I decided that maybe my horses were gonna stay home and I wasn't gonna go to any of my lessons where I haul out, do things like that for a little while. It's not
Sure.
forever,
Yeah.
but for a little while.
Right. Right. And that, I'll give you an example to kind of build off what you just said. Earlier today, I went and I taught some lessons, and then I had to go to another barn and we looked at a potential horse that a client is potentially buying. In between that, I had disinfectant. I sprayed it all over my boots, my clothes, gloves, things like that. And again, that might be overkill, but I was going from one set of horses to another
Mhm.
set of horses that don't normally interact, and I was going to ride at both those places.
Yeah.
So, and it was something that the owners wanted me to do, and I said, "Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's not going to bother me." Um, but that does sort of lead me to my next question for you. Going forward, how does this unfold? Like, what is the timeline on this? Because I know there's been several shows in our area that got canceled. We had a Virginia quarter horse show and some other ranch horse shows. That's just kind of the stuff I'm
Mhm.
familiar with. I'm sure it's affected a lot of disciplines, but
Yeah, the
we
stock
had
horse shows have really, shut down, and
mhm,
it seems like the hunter jumper, the USEF shows are still kind of going ahead. Um
right. Well, and also like I know the cutting futurity because that's in Texas where all this was going down. The cutting futurity is still going to happen.
They're just
That
doing the futurity and not any of the other classes.
right,
Yeah.
right. Um, the
Stop.
Rainers delayed, or as the last time I checked, the Rainers postponed their futurity by
Okay.
a week
Yeah.
to
Maybe
see.
that's the one that's not doing any of I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just kind
Yeah.
of, it doesn't matter who's doing what,
Right.
but different associations are choosing to handle it different ways.
Yeah.
The uh, national finals breakaway roping, it's getting postponed. As of right now, the NFR is still on track to start I think it's like the second weekend in December or whenever it's supposed to start. And they're still planning, even though the barrel racing championships and the NFR are all under the same umbrella in terms of, who's going to attend and stuff. So is there a timeline for this? Like, okay, there was this exposure. We saw this. When are things going to get back to normal? Or how do you foresee this going?
So, I mean, it's gonna take a little while. Um, there's a couple of websites that I would encourage your listeners to go check out for more information. First off, the Equine Disease Communication Center, the EDCC, is fantastic. They have protocols, procedures, advice for you for pre-show, post-show. You know, horses that are coming into your property, how to set up your whole biosecurity plan. Um, the American Association of Equine Practitioners also has um, some great information on there for horse owners as far as what they can do, how best to protect themselves, and sort of recommendations as far as what are we as a horse community doing. How long do we need to be worried about this? It's hard to say because this virus has not been very consistent as far as how long horses shed the virus after they've stopped having respiratory signs. Um, because it's spread through, you know, respiratory tract, so sneezing, coughing on other horses or people, and then people transmitting that. Horses with, neurologic issues, wobbliness, that takes a lot longer to recover from. So
Mm.
that's not what we're talking about when we're talking
Have there
about
been any reports of that yet from this group?
the neurologic or the.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and there was some a lot of concern because we felt like this particular strain of the virus was hitting these horses faster than we had seen before. You know, we had horses that um, were getting very sick very fast within like a 48-hour time window, and that was a little scary. Um, but yeah, the horses that were at um, the barrel the barrel event, like a lot, like several of them, I've been following them. They're still hospitalized in isolation.
Mm.
And there have been a couple of horses that have been put down. Um, so
Yeah. Wasn't one of the ones I heard was like the Arizona 3. Was that have you heard that?
so my understanding of the Arizona State is those horses basically spiked fevers, but they don't have any other symptoms.
Okay. Okay, good.
And I mean, that's not atypical. So you may not
Okay.
have even known that your horses had been exposed to the virus and you got home. They didn't spike a fever. But they have gone and they've tested every single horse, right? That has
Mhm.
that has come back. And those horses came up positive. Um,
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
Arizona as a state has set up a pretty strict lockdown on um their horse people. Like that you
Yeah.
I think she was telling me, she said she got a mandate like from the state that said you will take temperatures twice a day and you will keep this law or it's like a class 3 misdemeanor or something. Like they were going to charge her
Oh, no. Who is
with a
this?
crime for not um monitoring her animals and then reporting back to the state. So not that she
Dang.
was not going to do that, but that was just
Right. Who is this
very
like a friend of
serious.
yours or someone you know?
No, it's just people that I've seen on
Okay.
online. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of horses in Arizona. So, and a lot
Yeah,
of stalled horses in Arizona.
um, there are, yeah. So, it's
Yeah.
just how the state has chosen, um, to react.
Gotcha.
So, um, Maine hasn't really said anything. I don't know of anything that's really shut down or stopped. Not that there's a whole lot going on in Maine in November in the horse world. We've kinda shut down already anyway. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, and Virginia's kind of in a similar situation. I saw where the Carolina Equine Park in Camden, they said they were going to stay open because there's no confirmed cases in the Carolinas yet.
Yeah,
Um,
they said they're gonna require, health certificates sorry. This is a lot. Health
For
certificates.
anyone who's not watching the video, by the way, if it seems like we're laughing or there's extracurricular activity, it's because Caroline is wrestling her little whippet puppy who is hell bent on being in her lap right now as she explains the dangers of the
And biting me at
EHV1
the
virus.
same time. Yeah. I'm actually gonna kick him out. No, wow, I can't play with him. Go out. Sorry. Okay. All right.
Right.
Um,
But serious horse business.
yeah, serious horse business. No, definitely serious horse business.
You talking
So
about Carolina?
they're requiring a veterinary health certificate within 72 hours of arrival at the showgrounds. So,
Mm.
I mean, I don't know how helpful that is, but at least you know that horses had a temperature check
Sure.
within within 3 days before arrival. So,
Hmm. Yeah. And gotten, I mean, you would hope people would be educated, but at least had a set of eyes, trained eyes to if the horse did display any sort of discharge or neurologic behavior or anything like that, it would come up.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess to sort of sit and summarize, uh, because really, if a horse gets EHV1, it's like, okay, you have EHV1, that's treatable. It's the
Yeah.
or EHM that comes into play where it's deadly and then the horses either die or have to be euthanized because of the neurologic symptoms.
Now, I will say, like, with the majority of horses, and I think the number right now they say is just like 60 to 70% of horses will recover
Okay.
with care, but they do
Hmm.
require care. So,
Hmm. So that's the danger.
yeah,
Not that you want to intentionally infect your horse with the virus, but if they just get the virus, there is a chance that a more than 50% chance that it will resolve itself. You'll have to give them the prescribed care from your veterinarian, and then life will go on.
that's a
Um,
EHM. Yeah.
yeah.
I guarantee
Okay.
you probably any horse you've probably had has already been exposed to EHV1 because
Okay.
it's out there.
Yeah.
It's just we still don't have a good handle on why certain infections lead to this neurologic syndrome. And I mean, it's definitely
Hmm.
spread neurologic. These horses,
Yeah.
they were all, and it's, yeah, they've done a
Yeah.
lot of like molecular work on the virus to see if they can determine if there's like mutations in it that lead to the neurologic form, but that has never not borne fruit. Like we cannot figure out why it's different.
Okay. Interesting. So again, the virus can lead to EHM, and that's when people hear the horror stories on Facebook. It's like 3 horses left Waco and now they're dead. That's what it's referring to.
Yes, the EHM. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now us as a horse community, again, it seems like it's depending on what part of the country you're in, but the ways we're combating that is basically monitoring our horse health, disinfecting surfaces, because I guess we can talk a little bit more about how it spreads, but I know the big ones I've heard are surfaces, like nose to nose touching, respiration, um, you know, human humans can carry the virus like on their clothing or on their hands or whatever. Well, do you do we know how long EHV can survive? Like, say I get EHV on my sleeve or something, and then I go and I don't see another. That jacket doesn't see another horse for however many days. Do we know how long EHV will live on that jacket sleeve?
Weeks.
Roughly weeks. Wow, that's scary, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's the s that's the scariest part, people are, "Oh, I'm gonna keep my horses home, I'm not gonna, have them touch nose to nose with any other horse." Well, that's great, but you yourself, your person might be the biggest um, danger as far as bringing it home. So,
Right.
that said, there is such thing as, a viral load sufficient to cause disease, and we won't get into all that, but a single virus particle is very unlikely to cause an infection in your horse.
Okay.
So maybe that makes you feel a little better, right? I mean,
Right, right. So
yeah.
it's a it's a not an insignificant amount of this virus needs to live on my sleeve for weeks to go and infect another horse. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And like you're gonna have to get that virus somehow on your horse's mucous membranes. Which we talk about your water buckets. Don't share water buckets. I mean, that's because if
Mhm.
you get the virus swirling around in the water, how many of our horses just like dunk their whole muzzle down into um
Right.
the bucket?
Which
But
is a anytime we travel, that's a policy we have.
right.
I know there's certain events and it- certain disciplines treat it differently, but it's like, people are trying to help, like, oh, they'll be ringside. You, your horse need a drink of water or something.
Oh,
And yeah, yeah, that's a policy we have is when we travel places, our horses only drink out of our water buckets and no other horses drink out of our water buckets.
yeah. And I mean, you think about somebody feeding your horse a treat, something as
Hmm.
innocuous as that. But um and we'll talk a little bit about these horse show environments, I think, too, because people have said, well, how do I safely take my horse to a show? And I mean, Joe,
Hmm.
you've been to Congress. You
Hmm.
know what the giant barns full of temporary stalls. How are you going to protect your horse from an airborne virus in that
Hmm.
situation?
Oh yeah, it's like the perfect storm to catch an airborne virus.
It's like an incubator in there. And I say it's kind of like daycare. Like you just got snotty noses just going right down, the
Hmm.
stall line. So, and even if you have those stall guards that cover, the bars, if you don't have full partitions, they can still reach over the top of those stalls. So,
Yep.
that's, yeah, it's just, it, there's not really any good way to really feel good about your horses not
Right.
catching something. So, uh when I set up my stalls at a show, and I'm in temporary stalls like that, I will try and be strategic about where I put my tack stall versus where I put my horses and where the tack stall
Hmm.
behind me or next to me might be, because I'm trying to limit the number of noses that my horses can encounter. But I don't know, a sneeze can carry 15 feet from a horse
Hmm.
without any extra help from wind or anything like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to protect your horses at these shows. Um,
Yeah. Well, an example, Kaylee was just over at WEC, Ohio in Wilmington, right? And
yeah,
that's a completely indoor facility, right? Like our joke is that
yes,
it's a horse casino because there's no windows, you don't know what time it is, you're just at a horse show, and the
yes,
barn connects to the show office, which connects to all the different arenas, and you're just inside the whole time.
yeah.
And a place like that, you get a couple horses with the HV1, it's like all of a sudden all the horses can have it.
EHM,
Or
you
yeah,
probably do
well,
have
yeah.
horses with
Yeah,
EHV1.
the horses probably do have EHV, but you have a horse with EHM.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. You have a
Well,
horse with
I say that,
EHM,
some horses
it
are
could
just sort
probably
of latent
pass.
carriers of some of these viruses and things like that. So they're
Mhm.
just constantly sort of shedding off and on, and
Yeah.
it's not a
Now,
problem until whatever happens to that virus makes it, change or attack the vasculature. So,
yeah. So what does that look like? Um, say knock on wood, I really hope this doesn't happen, but say I have a horse that is running a temperature and I call my vet and I say, "Hey, I've been monitoring this horse's temperature. It's up today." Would they come and is there like a field test for EHV or a test for EHM? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, so you would have they would likely pull blood and do a nasal swab. Okay, and so we would look for they'll do PCR. So they're looking for the virus itself in the nasal swab, and they'll also look for antibodies against the virus in the blood. And so that's if there's if there's virus in the nasal swab, your horse has EHV1
Yeah.
because they're
Okay.
shedding virus. So
Right. Right. Okay. Um, so in terms of how it's affecting us in the real world right now, horse shows are basically, at least in your opinion, there's not a great way to put on a horse show um, right now and not put the horses at risk.
I think that I think that it kind of depends. I mean, people, can you could you haul in and show outside? You know, that's definitely a decreased risk
Yeah,
than being stabled. Um, is it a local show where the majority of horses are coming from your area and you haven't had any positive horses? Uh,
sure.
then but if it's multi-state, you're pulling horses from who knows where, the big Florida circuits that are coming up, that gets a little bit more concerning. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But the ways we're choosing to manage it is we're monitoring our horses
mhm.
and controlling their exposure to other horses or surfaces that have come in contact with other horses, whether that's water buckets, stalls at a venue, um, you know, our jackets and gloves and our hands, things like that. Uh, I might kind of sum that up. Like that's how we're choosing to manage the EHV and EHM right now.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that again, everybody's got their own level of risk tolerance, you know, as far as what's an acceptable risk or not. I mean, the vast majority of horses are going to survive this outbreak and, not even come close to having any kind of risk. But we don't
Hmm.
know that right now. And the next couple of weeks are going to be, that window. We're going to really see how far reaching this is. So,
Right. Okay. Cool. So you feel like in the next, like you said, the next couple of weeks. So getting into December a little bit. Maybe by like mid December, we'll kind of have a handle on how this is going to escalate or de escalate.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. And I mean, I think horse people in general are pretty savvy. Like they are going to do what's best for their horses. And I think as a community, we're pretty good about shutting these things down by
Right.
doing just what you said. We're going to do our due diligence. We're going to implement our biosecurity plans, and um, we're going to be really vigilant. And so that's going to help definitely, stop this thing in its tracks, hopefully, like it usually does. I
Right.
mean, we've had, you know, we've had outbreaks before. It's just that this one happened in a location that was unfortunate in that there were
Yeah. It
horses
was
from
kind of a
all
perfect
across the
storm,
country.
right?
Yeah. And then they dispersed all across the country. So,
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Well, I think that in to me that kind of sums up where we're at unless you have any other thoughts you'd like to share or things that you feel like it's important we touch on before we wrap up.
I don't really, people ask like, should I vaccinate? How is that helping? And we don't 100% no yet, but vaccinating is important, and in my opinion, I feel like vaccinated horses, again, we talked about how they're not gonna get as sick, they're not gonna shed as much virus, and then we don't have that much virus in the environment for other horses to get sick with. So, I mean, they still have to get respiratory disease to spread this virus, even if it does go to EHM. So vaccinating is, we need to continue to be good about vaccinating our horses. And
Mhm. Is
that
that a
I still
yearly
think,
vaccine?
I'm sorry?
Is EHV a yearly vaccine? Like, I know our horses, it's mainly because of the nature of our barn and how much we travel, but we do spring vaccines and fall vaccines for our horses. But I couldn't tell
Rhino.
you off the top of my head
It's
if
rhinopneumonitis. So you're doing
okay.
it through rhino boosters, probably twice a year.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Gotcha.
And yeah. And so I'm not saying, like, go out and vaccinate your horses right now. That doesn't really help. They're
Mhm.
not gonna uh, but I'm just saying as a general best practice, keep up with those
Mhm.
vaccinations. So,
Yep.
because if
Absolutely.
we're all vaccinating, the chances that we have, um, a virus be able to take hold is lowered in my understanding.
Yeah. 100%. Cool. Well, this has at the very least been a very helpful conversation for me. I feel like I've got a better grasp on it now. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with a layperson and kind of watch me fumble through trying to figure out how this is all working. But no, this has been great, and hopefully it does mull over in the next week or two, and by the new year things are kind of back to the status quo. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, think so.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Caroline. Don't hang up, but we are going to stop recording.
Okay.